Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time it is. Welcome to the 5 Next Steps by Daniel Duwa Show. These are the insights from today's leaders, the show that we uncover the strategies and insights from exceptional leaders who are shaping the world around us. Today, we have the privilege of sitting down with Peter Brainch, a true luminary in the realm of leadership and management with over 5 decades of experience across various levels of management. Brainch expert and wisdom are unparalleled. As the director of the social house and managing director at SHINDA Limited, Brainch has consistently demonstrated his ability to lead with vision, creativity, and deep understanding for dynamic business. Welcome our esteemed guest, Peter Brainch.
Well, good morning. My name is Peter Brainch, and I'm talking to you from the AHIF conference, which is being held here in Nairobi for, I think, the third or fourth time. I've been involved in the hotel industry in Kenya for 50 years, can you believe it? And I first came here in 1973, when at that time I worked with the Block family, who had a number of hotels in Kenya. They had my first job was at the New Stanley Hotel, and then I moved on to run all the lodges, which was Treetops and Outspan and Keekrock and Samburu. Then I had a spell at the Nyali Beach, running the Nyali Beach, and also for a brief period the Simbad in Malindi, which is now washed away and covered in sand. I then had a spell at Norfolk and built up a team, and we travelled together to Southern Africa, to Lesotho, in Maseru in Lesotho, which was a group of government hotels owned by the government of Lesotho. And myself and 3 Kenyan colleagues went down there to run a management contract. Very frustrating, very challenging, and it didn't work out terribly well, so we came back. Late 70s, Mzee Kenyatta passed on, and I actually left Kenya for the whole of the 1980s and worked back in the UK. I then came back to Kenya in 1990 to run the Serena Group as CEO, and I did that for six and a half years. Then I started my own consultancy business, and I bring in specialized equipment for the hospitality industry. I first came in contact with the social house in, I think, 2014, when I met the current owners, the Njogu family, and we hit it off very well. And I think it was midnight 2014, we held hands on the same shovel to break ground for what is today the social house. And it evolved from being a fairly small property into being something a little bit more significant. And today we have 83 rooms and we have 4 restaurants. Big variety of food offerings. We're in the center of Lavington, which means we have a tremendous catchment area of residential people who use the restaurants of the hotel. And we opened on the 2nd of February 2020, and then we closed because of COVID. Then we opened again, and then we closed again for a period of time because there was some discussion with Ministry of Health and Ministry of Tourism about whether hotels could be open or not. Partly because they'd issued instructions that bars and restaurants should be closed, but we fought quite hard to say, well, we're restaurants within a hotel, and so finally there were concessions made, and we could open our restaurants to residents of the hotel. That helped us a little bit in terms of keeping the business going. And then things loosened up towards the end of 2020 and into 2021. And today COVID is happily something of the past, although one still hears cases of people getting COVID. But the hotel is getting much more back into a sort of even keel in terms of its business. It has a great location in Lavington, right on James Gicheru Road. And as we evolved the hotel, apart from the concept and the infrastructure and the inevitable back of house areas and kitchens which needed to be created, we also embarked on moving into a new direction when it came to traditional hotel keeping. So we describe ourselves today as being a non-traditional hotel, slightly quirky, slightly off the wall, slightly fun, and we've tried to maintain that spirit and that culture throughout. And as a result of that, it's proved to be an extremely popular property. When we started, an interesting point, when we started, we went through the recruitment process to take on the 120 odd staff that we have, 140 staff we have. And more than 60% of the staff that we took on were young people who'd never ever been in the hospitality industry before. We did this consciously because we felt that with training we could teach people about service aspects of setups of tables and restaurant service and bar service, but what we couldn't teach them was their personality and their character. And what we were really looking for were young people with a spark, with an ambition, with personality and character which would interface with our client base and create relationships for loyalty of our clients and loyalty of our staff. And this was kind of a bit of a first, rather than taking on perhaps people from the industry who'd been in the industry and became rather set in their ways, and they didn't have this spark that we were looking for. And that's proved to be very successful, so we're very happy with that. Looking to the future, we are constantly trying to upgrade our quirkiness, introducing new things, sometimes a little bit silly, sometimes not. But I think we've set a new benchmark in terms of East Africa and Kenya when it comes to looking at the hotel industry slightly differently. People often ask me, what is your star rating? And my answer to them is, what would you like it to be? Because clearly there is some benchmarking that needs to be done in terms of standards, but we wanted to keep the thing loose and informal. It's not perfect, but no hotel is perfect, 100% perfect anyway. And we wanted to keep this individuality and this character of the property in the forefront of the culture and the way in which it was being operated. So, yeah, that's the social house story.
Wow, amazing, yeah. So, you've been in the industry for
50 years.
50 years, yeah?
Yeah.
What has been your highest moment and what has been your lowest moment?
My highest moment was when I was working in the 80s. I was sent to Zambia, of all places, because that was one of the management contracts that the company I was with in the UK had. And I had to open a hotel called the Pamodzi, which is today under a different name because it's being managed by an Indian company. But this hotel had a deadline of the 29th of August 1979, never forget the day, to be open for the Commonwealth Heads of State Conference. And we opened on that day, and we immediately had 10 heads of state staying. And on that evening, a banquet hosted by President Kaunda for 500 people. So it was quite hairy. But my lasting memory of that was in the afternoon before we opened. I asked our personnel people to get all the staff together in a room. We had, I think, 250 staff. And we got them all together in this room, and I was sort of sitting in the front with the personnel people and the other heads of department, and I was very nervous. And I thought, well, the way to break the ice here is actually to start singing the national anthem, which was a great favourite of Kaunda's. So off I went with a warbling voice singing this first verse of Tiendi Bamodzi, which is the national anthem.
How does it go? How did you sing it?
I think it started, stand and sing of Zambia, proud and free. You know, that sort of hair-raising thing. And I sang the first verse and there was complete silence. And I thought, oh shit, what's going on here? And then when the second verse came along, all 250 staff joined in, and we had this beautiful mixture of ladies singing soprano and deep male voices singing the national anthem. I actually started crying. You know, it was a special moment. So that was great. Lowest moment. I think the lowest moment was that I was working in the UK for, I don't know whether you won't remember, but there was an airline called British Caledonian back in the day, and it had a hotel company called Caledonian Hotels. And I worked for them for 6 years as marketing director. And one day, very suddenly, the airline decided to sell the hotel company to try and salvage the airline and keep it afloat. So we were sold, we were called the Family Silver, but we were sold as the Family Silver. And it was very disappointing because we were sold to a company that nobody really wanted to be involved with. And so the whole of the executive management team walked out. And that was
Did you stay?
Quite an upsetting moment.
Did you stay?
No, I left.
Okay.
I left. And then I went off to spend a couple of years on the island of Madeira, which is part of Portugal, running a very famous hotel. Well, I wasn't running it, I was the MD, a very famous hotel called Reed's Hotel on the island of Madeira. And that was quite an experience. And at that time it was family-owned hotel. It's now owned by the Venice Samplon Express Company, VSOE. But that was a sort of a moment in my life which was brilliant. We did a refurbishment, and I remember the chairman saying to me during the refurbishment, here's the budget, and we had about $10 million to spend on a refurbishment of the whole hotel. And his brief to me was, and I'll never forget this, his brief to me was, Peter, I want our loyal and regular and repeat guests not to notice any difference once the refurbishment was done, because it was so traditional. That was a 5-star hotel, very traditional.
And that was a trend then.
Yeah.
Clients wanted to walk in, it's as if they're walking to their sitting room.
Yeah, and they just didn't want to know that there was any difference.
Yeah.
But then I came
So
back.
at that point, what is it you change in the property? Is it the fittings? Is it the lighting? Is it the
Quality of the furniture and the furnishings. We had a restaurant on the roof, which was an a la carte restaurant, and it was very formal. It was a black tie, dinner jacket, evening dinner arrangement.
Yeah.
And we had a great architect, interior designer from London, a guy called John Lennon, who came out and he came up with a new scheme for this restaurant. And what he did, because the moonlight from the reflected off the Indian Ocean off the Atlantic Ocean into the restaurant. So he put a crinkled silver-lined ceiling in the restaurant. So when the moon was up, the light was bouncing off the sea onto the ceiling and down onto the tables. So the tables were moving like this, as if ocean. It was tremendous effect. Anyway, it was mostly to do with furnishings and carpets and so on, but it was all very expensive stuff, which is why we had such a big budget.
Yeah.
Some of the bathrooms needed to be done, obviously, some of the new beds and all the rest of it, but the majority of the budget was spent on top of the range carpets, top of the range curtain material, and so on. So that was an experience in itself.
And I like that segue, because I was going to bring you back. You've traveled the world, you had that great project, you've had great projects, but you still can't. What brings you back to Kenya?
My ex-wife has a sister here who's married to somebody locally. My kids grew up here from the age of about 5, and they love it here. My son works up country and he just loves Kenya. He's in the Aberdares pretty much every weekend. He just loves Kenya. And I think at that point in my life, it was about family settling as well as me finding something that I wanted to do. It was very interesting working for the Aga Khan at that time, because the company is now a public company, but at that time it was still owned by the Aga Khan.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating, culturally absolutely correct and proper, and Serena still creates a benchmark, I think, in East Africa for consistency at the 5-star level, and that was an interesting time. My number 2, guy who you may know called Chan Mohammed, he took over from me as MD, and he's still there and he's doing a fantastic job. So I then started my own little business, and then along came the social house about 8 years ago.
So after all this time, yeah, what is something that still excites you?
What excites me today is the way in which we're managing and operating the social house. As a person, as you say, who's been in the hotel business since the year dot, I've never had so much fun being involved in a hotel. We have a lot of fun. We have serious times, of course, because management on a commercial basis of a hotel is quite a serious business. You know, all the back of house stuff and the financial management and so on. Very important. But we have so much fun actually running the operation. It's brilliant. I mean, you know, I'm quite blasé these days, and I don't think that I would get involved in another project in the hotel sector, which was, dare I say, boring, dare I say, sort of run-of-the-mill traditional hotel keeping. I've done all that a long time ago.
Yeah.
But today, this is such fun.
Okay.
Such fun.
Okay. What's a story that remains to be told? What's a story you want to tell still? Because it seems like you've taken over the hotel industry. You've lived a good life. You've had some lows. What remains?
What remains, I think, is staying on this planet long enough to see my grandchildren grow up. My granddaughter arrived yesterday.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and my grandson is now 3.5. And I just hope I can stay on this planet long enough to see them grow up into their teens and maybe beyond.
Okay, with all your experience in business, in the industry, you've started your own farm. if you were to go back, what's one kind of advice you'd give to yourself? Because you find when you're young, at least for me, I will always running up and down and doing things. And one advice I give myself now, 20 years down the road, is slow down. Nothing is running away.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean, I'm a little bit of a workaholic. I still like to be involved. I think if I had my time over again, somebody once said to me way back in the 70s, you know, a career in the hotel business, you need to go with one of the big internationals, travel the world with the internationals at GM level or whatever, and then when it comes to retiring at the age of 65 or whatever it is, you're given a very nice pension and you go fishing. Well, that didn't happen. Because as I said, when I finished working in Europe and came back here in the 90s, part of the reason was because the family wanted to be here. And I think if I had my time again, and I was not a family person, I would have done something perhaps a little bit different. But
like what?
Well, you know, some of the big hotel companies at the time had, you know, very good benefits packages. Intercontinental, for example. A great friend of mine was retired as general manager of the Intercontinental at Hyde Park in London, and he's retired on a very nice pension. I've moved around so much that, you know, that escaped me, if you like, but I've, you know, kind of made up for it with still having a nice involvement in a fun project, which keeps me thinking.
But is it your character? Because, you know, there are people who get into one place and they're home, and there are people who have to wander the world and explore and experience everything.
Yeah, how should I describe that? I would like to think that even today I can still spend time outside Kenya doing other things. I love fishing. I would like to, if in an ideal world, I'd like to spend some months in Europe in the summer and Kenya winter.
Which is both summer in essence.
Yeah, which may not be possible. And yeah, I think by the time you get to my age, you think, well, you know, there are things that are no longer on the agenda, on the menu. So cut your cloth accordingly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you think I left out that probably you want to talk about?
No, I don't think so. I think we've had a good conversation.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed it.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. I live for this.
Nice to talk to you.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the end of our enlightening interview with the exceptional Peter Brainch, a true embodiment of leadership and management expertise. Throughout our conversation on the 5 next steps, Brainch generously shared his invaluable insights and strategy that have guided his remarkable career over the 5 decades. We delved deep into Brainch's leadership philosophy and covered his unwavering commitment to excellence, and his ability to think outside the box have been instrumental in the success as the director of the Social Hub and the managing director of SHINDA Limited. We extend our sincere gratitude to Peter for his generous sharing of his knowledge and life experience. His wisdom and strategy acumen truly serves as a guiding light to and for aspiring leaders, providing actionable takeaway and life's journey. As we conclude this episode of 5 Next Steps Leadership Briefs, I invite you to take a moment and reflect on the profound insights by sharing Brainch's story. Let us all embrace the principle as we navigate the ever-evolving landscape of leadership, and especially business leadership. Thank you for joining me on this enlightening journey, and be sure to stay tuned for our next episode where we will continue to explore strategy and insights for extraordinary leaders in business and in life who are shaping the world around us. I'd like to leave you with a gentle reminder, as usual, to prioritize your happiness. While pursuing leadership and success, it's critical not to lose sight of your own well-being and happiness. Find fulfillment in both personal and professional life, nurturing a healthy balance that fuels your overall well-being. Remember to try to be happy. And also remember to get in touch, because we value you. So share what you are currently working on, both personally and professionally. We would love to hear about the excitement, projects, and goals that are driving you forward. Also, we would be delighted to know if the 5 Next Steps show has an impact on you. Has the show provided you with valuable insight and strategies that you can apply in your own leadership or business journey? Your feedback is invaluable to us as we continue to bring engaging, impactful conversation with exceptional leaders like Peter. Thank you for being a part of the show, and also for your continued support. We're looking forward to connecting with you, learning about the incredible strides you are making, and celebrating your journey towards success and happiness. Remember, your journey matters, and together we can empower one another, reaching new heights of fulfillment, achievement, and joy. Until the next time, keep striving, keep growing, and never forget to prioritize your happiness along the way. Remember to try to be happy. My name is Daniel Duwa. You've been listening to 5 Next Steps Show. These are the leadership briefs. Bye-bye.
5 Next Steps by award-winning Daniel Duwa, finishing school for business leaders, business heads, chairs, chief executive officers, CEOs, chief operating officers, CFOs, and high-level management. Daniel Duwa, an award-winning scaling expert, a global executive business leadership trainer helping individuals and corporations achieve clarity in uncertain times. Start your 5 Next Steps right now.